This is a library book haul. I was at the library last night studying and I had finished the last collection of books I'd taken out from the library. I actually did that haul in late November or early December, and I finally just made my way through the very last one last week, and so I was ready to pick up some more. And I thought I would show them to you because you seem to enjoy seeing my last haul. So I have a lot of biographies of de Beauvoir, and I have some Albert Camus here. So I'll start with whatever the hell is on top of this pile. So I have a biography of Simone de Beauvoir. It is by Conrad Bieber, and it was just something random I picked up off the shelf. This is the first printing. It was published in 1979 by G.K. Hall and Company. It is not something I've ever heard of. It's fairly short, but the author is a professor of French and comparative literature, and it looks as though it looks at her autobiographical writings. The first chapter is titled The First Volume of Memoirs and Early Life. So it looks as though the author traces de Beauvoir's writing through her autobiographical works, and it should be quite interesting. It's only about 200 pages, less than 200 pages, so I should get through it fairly quickly. Set that over there. And the next one I have here is The Stranger by Albert Camus. As you probably know, this one was published in 1942. I'm just going to check who the translator of my edition is. Translated from the French by Matthew Ward. This particular edition was published in 1999. And I'm looking forward to finally reading this one. It's been on my TBR for quite a long time. Set that over there. And next I have The Fall by Albert Camus. This was one that I had never heard of. Where did I put my notebook? There it is. I looked it up after I checked it out, just so that I would know some basic details. First published in 1956, and this was his last complete novel before his death. It's the story of a Parisian lawyer's confession of amorality. As I said, I knew nothing about it, but I'm looking forward to reading it, and as all of Camus' works tend to be, it is fairly short, a fairly thin volume. Next on my pile, I have A Happy Death, also by Camus. This was his first novel, but it wasn't published until later in his life, from what I understand. It was translated from the French by Richard Howard. This is a Vintage Books Division of Random House edition. This particular one was published in 1973. Not that it's much to look at. You can see the end paper there. And supposedly this one deals with the conscious creation of one's happiness, which seems like a pretty interesting theme for a book. And once again, it is fairly short, so it shouldn't take me too long to get through it, and I'm looking forward to reading it, of course, which is obviously why I checked it out. So that's kind of a dumb thing to say, but you know what I mean. Next on my pile, I have a bit of a challenge for myself. This is what appears to be one of Simone de Beauvoir's journals, and it is entirely in French, Septembre to Janvier. Let's see if I can do this. 1939, 1939, September 1939 to Janvier 1941, possibly. My grade school French is showing. I have about the French, the oral French level of a toddler, and not that much better with my reading skills. But I really wanted to read this, and there was no English edition available in my university library, so I decided to take a chance, and it's going to be slow working, but I'm hoping I'll enjoy it while at the same time building on my my French reading skills. I know basics like numbers, dates, the alphabet, some very basic grammar, basic things like food and weather, but not much more than that. So this will be quite the challenge, and it might take me months and months and months to get through it. But learning French has been one of my goals, and I'm hoping that this will help in some regard. Next on my pile, I have something else on the topic of de Beauvoir. This is another biography. It is by Lisa Apignazzi, I think. Apignazzi. It's a Penguin book, and there goes the old date card. Not that this is relevant anymore, but I'll put it back. It is a biography, and it's a very short one. It starts out with a chronology in the front, published in 1988 in English originally, and I'm hoping it will give me a new perspective on de Beauvoir. I've read all her memoirs. I've read one biography of her, but I expect that reading a number of different biographies will provide me with different perspectives on her life. And I have another biography of Simone de Beauvoir. This one is by Deidre Bear. It's a little bit battered, as you can see. There's my checkout receipt. But this is published by Summit Books, and it was first published in 1990, and it is a mountain of a book, a bit of a brick. But as I said with the other de Beauvoir biography, I'm looking forward to getting a new perspective on her life and on her writings. And the final one I have is kind of a curiosity. I was surprised to find it. It is an annotated bibliography of Simone de Beauvoir, of her works and of works written about her. It was published, it was compiled and published by Joy Bennett and Gabriella Hochman. And it has quite a bit in it. I'm going to kind of sift through, figure out what I may want to read. It was published in 1988 by Garland Publishing, and things are in alphabetical order as you would expect. It begins with general criticism. So, for instance, the second entry is by Nelson Algren. It's titled Last Rounds in Small Cafes, Remembrances of Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir, Chicago, 29 December 1980, pages 210 to 213 and 237 to 240, and it says it recalls the time spent with Sartre and de Beauvoir in Paris in the late 1940s. So I'm going to, as I said, kind of sift through this and decide what works I might want to look for, what might be interesting to me. So we begin with general criticism, then we have interviews, theses. So I'm assuming these are theses that students have written at the master's and PhD level on her works. For example, we have Jeanette J. Adnott, Existentialist Feminism in Simone de Beauvoir, master's thesis, Florida Atlantic University, 1982, suggests that de Beauvoir's existentialist and feminist works affirm that women are as fully capable of obtaining existentialist authenticity and liberty as men, says that her novels portray an inverse relationship between feminist convictions and personal success, the latter perhaps being de Beauvoir's view of women's contemporary conditions as opposed to their feminist ideals. So there are a few pages of theses. This, of course, is not exhaustive as it was published more than 30 years ago now. We have a section on book reviews of Simone de Beauvoir's works. All Men Are Mortal, All Said and Done, The Blood of Others, Les Belles Images, Coming of Age, Force of Circumstance, The Prime of Life, Memoirs of a Dutiful Daughter, and of course, The Second Sex. And then at the very end we have obituaries on de Beauvoir's life. She died in the 1980s.